There's a certain kind of wartime ingenuity that feels almost rebellious. You know, the kind that comes alive when everything modern fails and you're left with only grit, scraps and raw physics. World War II was a furnace that forged thousands of these clever hacks. But one stands out because it didn't just help soldiers survive the cold, hunger or the dark. It helped them generate power anywhere. No batteries, no fuel, no fancy equipment. Just the kind of improvisation that turns a foxhole into a workshop and a soldier into an electrician with muddy boots. Let's dive into the surprising trick that allowed troops to create electricity on the move. A method so simple and rugged that it still works today if you strip life down to dirt, metal and necessity. Early in the war, the military needed small portable radios, field telephones, signal lamps and ignition devices that didn't always have reliable power sources. Batteries were precious. They leaked, died fast in cold weather, and supply chains were constantly disrupted. So soldiers were taught a trick older than the war itself, but rarely appreciated, generating electricity using improvised galvanic cells. So, in plain English, they made makeshift batteries out of whatever conductive metals and electrolytes they could get their hands on. War zones aren't exactly stocked with AA batteries, but, you know, they're full of soil, metal scraps, carbon rods and salty water. Those were enough to cook up a current. In some units, soldiers used tin food cans as the outer container. Inside, they placed a carbon rod from a used radio dry cell, or even charcoal wrapped in cloth. Then they added a strip of zinc scavenged from ration tins or broken equipment. Fill the can with damp, salty mud, or water mixed with ash. And suddenly you have a battery with just enough juice to power a field transmitter or spark a detonator. No factories, no logistics, just battlefield alchemy. The power of the trick wasn't about the numbers, it was about universality. A soldier in France, the desert, the Pacific or the Arctic could pull it off because the ingredients were almost always around in some form. Zinc, carbon and moisture created a natural chemical reaction that released electrons. That small flow of electricity was enough for low-voltage gear. What made this hack legendary among survivalists later on was that it doesn't rely on anything rare. You don't need pristine lab chemicals. Mud becomes your electrolyte. Broken batteries become your carbon sources. Even rusty metal can jump back into service as a conductor. During World War II, some reports mention signal teams teaching new recruits how to brew power from Earth. They'd bury zinc plates and carbon rods in the soil, pour salty water between them, and run wires to their gear. The ground literally became a working power cell. In dense, wet soil, they got even better output. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't strong, but it worked. Let's break this down simply. When two different metals touch an electrolyte, like salt water or wet soil, the metal atoms start releasing electrons at different rates. One becomes the giver, the other becomes the receiver. That mismatch creates electrical pressure. Once you attach wires, the electrons flow. Soldiers didn't need to understand the equations. They just needed the recipe. So, you needed one metal that gives up electrons easily, and then one metal or even a carbon source that takes them, and of course one electrolyte, Usually something damp or salty would do the trick. The output, well, it depended on the size of the plates and just how conductive the soil or liquid was. A single improvised cell didn't do much, honestly. But several wired together? Suddenly you had enough voltage to run a field phone long enough to call in coordinates, send a coded message, or check in with a commander miles away. It was raw, gritty engineering, born from necessity, kept alive because it delivered when everything else fell apart. Communication was life. Radios and field phones meant supplies, reinforcements, artillery support, or medical help. When a soldier's radio died, it wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a tightening noose. So this improvised battery trick, well, it became part of the soldier's survival toolbox. In the Philippines, troops cut open dewed batteries for carbon rods, paired them with scrap zinc from canteens, and stirred muddy ground into a thick electrolyte mix. That got them enough power to transmit short-range signals. On the Eastern Front, where cold weather killed batteries fast, this trick became essential. Frozen batteries lose capacity dramatically. So soldiers heated mud to thaw the ground, set up a line of zinc plates, and carbon rods poured salted water and jump-started their radios. There are accounts of Allied engineers using this method to test detonators when replacement batteries hadn't arrived. The output was tiny but steady, a reliable spark when lives depended on timing. Some units even left improvised batteries buried overnight so the moisture could soak deeper into the soil, boosting conductivity by morning. This wasn't textbook science. This was boots-in-the-mud survival thinking. Today, survival communities still talk about this World War II trick because it teaches something deeper than voltage and amperage. It shows you how to think when every tool you rely on disappears. Carrying a battery bank is easy, but knowing how to generate power when everything dies? That's a different level of self-reliance. You can recreate this exact method anywhere. Zinc or aluminum from cans, gutters or camping pots. Carbon from charcoal or spent batteries. Saltwater or wet soil. Any small device that runs on low voltage. Stack the metal and carbon in alternating layers. Add electrolyte. Wait for the reaction. Then test your output. It's the same humble physics soldiers leaned on 80 years ago. You won't power a house. You won't charge a smartphone to full. But you will get enough electricity to ignite, signal, or test circuits. Exactly what wartime soldiers needed in the moments that counted. And that's why this trick survived long after the war ended. The real magic of this World War II hack isn't the electricity, it's the mindset. Use what you have, understand the forces around you, and don't wait for the perfect tool. Soldiers created power from dirt, scraps, and rainwater. They refused to let broken batteries silence them. That same spirit fuels the survival community today. Knowledge beats gear. Every time. If you enjoyed learning about this forgotten wartime skill and you want more lost techniques, rare survival lore, and deep dives into the tricks soldiers used to stay alive, make sure you subscribe to Legacy of Survival. Share this video with someone who'd appreciate the blend of history and hands-on know-how. There's plenty more coming, and you won't want to miss it.